Welcome to another episode of the Clueless Dudes Real Tool Reviews. Today we're going to be looking at two drills side by side. On the left we have the hypertough coming in at about $29. On the right we have the HART coming in at about $34. It used to be $58, now it's magically $34 on the website. Why? I don't know. Okay guys, so why did I pick these two drills? Well, they have a few things in common. They're both 20 volts. They both have 3/8 of an inch chuck. They're both brushed motors. And most importantly, they are the cheapest 20 volt drill I can find in their respective lines. That is, it's the cheapest HART 20 volt drill I can find and the cheapest hypertough drill that I can find. So why is that important? If you're thinking of buying a 20 volt drill and you want the cheapest one you can find, you're not sure whether or not to go the hypertough series or the HART series, well, this video should help you decide. Alright guys, let's get testing. Before we do our first test, let's look at the dimensions of the drills. As you can see, the hypertough is a lot shorter. Between the base to the tip of the chuck, it's only 7.44 inches versus the HART's 8.69 inches. In addition to that, the hypertough drill is also just a little bit shorter than the HART drill. But as you can see, it doesn't have much effect on the chuck height. Alright guys, let's get going. As we finish each test, we'll keep track of the results here on the scorecard.
Alright, time for our first test. It's going to be a 1/2 inch drill bit. This is a split point bit, and it's going to be going into a piece of pressure treated wood. My feeling is this. The reason why I'm using this as the first test is, if you're wondering if the drills are good enough to put up picture frames or something a little bit bigger, if we can do this into pressure treated wood, I'd hope that would answer your question. Alright guys, here we go. 2 holes from each drill into this pressure treated wood at a 1/2 inch, and we'll see how it goes. 3, 2, 1, and go. There we go. No problem at all. This one filled a little bit fast.
Alright drill fans, as you can see, they both were able to do this without a problem. And give them both a pass. The HART was a little bit faster, and I can tell you from doing it, the HART had a lot more power. But they both passed easily. Alright guys, let's do something a little bit harder. We're going to switch to a 3/4 inch spade bit going into pressure treated wood, and we'll see if differences start to show up a bit more.
Time for the next test. A 3/4 inch bit. It's a spade bit. And we'll see how it does. We start off with the hypertough going into the same piece of pressure treated wood. And again, as a reminder, pressure treated wood is harder to drill through than regular lumber. Well, here we go. 3, 1, 2, and 1, and go. Go. As you can see, the HART got it done too, and I'll tell you, just from a perspective of the user, this felt smoother than the hypertough. This felt like it had a little bit more power, and I didn't feel like it was vibrating nearly as much. Alright guys, we'll have to look at the scorecard in the playback to see which one was faster. Here we go.
Alright guys, as we get to do harder and harder tests, more and more difference will be seen between the HART and the hypertough. The HART definitely has more torque. Next test is going to be even harder. It's going to be a 1-inch speed bit. If you're not familiar with speed bits, they require a lot of torque. Alright guys, time for more testing. This time with the 1-inch speed bit, which will start to show some real differences between the two. Here we go.
We got another test here. 1-inch speed bit. If you're not familiar with speed bits, they're the ones that have the thread on the front of them that pulls them down. So they're similar to a spade bit, but with this extra threading. And again, that thread digs into the wood and as it spins, pulls the bit through the wood, and thus it requires more torque. Therefore, it's a better test for a drill. Let's see if it can do it. A 1-inch speed bit into pressure treated wood. Here we go. 3, 2, 1, and go. Now, as you can see, it can't quite do it. Nope, I think that's, yeah, it's not going to do it. Alright guys, so we found the limit here for the hypertough. It can't do a 1-inch speed bit into pressure treated wood. Later on in the show, we'll give it a try with regular lumber and see if we can do a 1-inch speed bit into some regular lumber. But the same exact test this time, but with the HART. We do the same exact thing. We're going to use a 1-inch speed bit. Again, the speed bit has a little thing on the front that's going to pull the bit down as it's spinning, so I get very little control over it. Here we go. 3, 2, 1, and go. Ooh. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do this one more time because it was right on the cusp. I felt like it just bound up for a second. Let me find another good spot here. Hopefully it's still in frame right about here. There's a good spot. And if I'm still in frame, this should work out good. Let's give it another try and see what it does. Looks like it's right on the crispy edge of what it can do. And I have to admit, there's a slight overlap on that one with a smaller hole. But as you guys can see, the 1-inch speed bit, right on the crispy edge of what this HART can do. I personally think it's probably a tad too much for it. Now keep in mind, this is pressure treated wood. Just to be fair, I'm going to get another piece of wood out and we'll try it with just a regular piece of wood and see if they can do it. Alright guys, let's do another set of testing.
Alright, drill fans, just to be fair, before I go on to the regular piece of wood to redo the 1-inch speed bit test, I'm going to try again with pressure treated wood with a slightly smaller bit. I think perhaps at least one or perhaps both the drills will be able to do it with a 13/16 of a bit. That's a bit more than a 3/4 of an inch bit, so roughly a little bit less than a 1/4 of an inch smaller. And therefore, I'm hopeful that both drills will be able to do it, but to find out for sure, let's give it a test and see what happens.
Alright guys, another test. 13/16 into pressure treated wood. Again, it's a speed bit. Now once this is done, I'm going to get some regular lumber and we'll retest out that 1-inch speed bit into regular lumber. But for now, I want to see what the limit is into pressure treated wood with these drills. So again, this is going to be 13/16 into pressure treated wood, and I try one hole each with each of the drills and see how they do. 3, 2, 1, and go. Alright, it did it. I had to back it out one. So hypertough did it. Just barely though. And again, 13/16 of a speed bit. Let's try the same thing now with the HART and see how it does. Alright guys, 13/16 of an inch. Speed bit into a pressure treated 2x4 with the HART. Here we go. 3, 2, 1, and go. So as you guys can see, the HART definitely has got more power. I can see it even without a stopwatch. I can just tell from pushing on it, it feels a lot sturdier. So I'm going to say the HART definitely has more power. And so between the two, so far the HART, in my mind, is the winner. And again, there's not that much difference in price between them. All right, guys, let's go on to some more testing.
Alright guys, you saw with a 13/16 speed bit into pressure treated wood, the HART was able to do it. The hypertough was struggling quite a bit. Alright, so let's think about this and think about why this may or not exactly be a fair test. And the answer is, I was using pressure treated wood, which is harder to go into than normal wood, and I was using a speed bit, which is pretty much a challenge for any entry-level drill. Combine the two together, and you can see that perhaps we're being a little bit unfair to the hypertough, because after all, it is a $29 drill, whereas the HART, although I bought it for $34, at one point was $58. Alright guys, we're going to keep testing, but just keep in mind that up until now we've been using pressure treated wood, and now we're going to go back to normal lumber, the kind you'll probably find inside behind your walls, used as wall studs and things like that. Alright guys, let's test regular lumber and see what both drills can do.
Alright guys, time for the testing again. This time again with the same 1-inch speed bit we did earlier, except this time it's going to be into a regular piece of lumber. So this is just a standard 2x4, nothing special, and we'll see if it's able to do it. Remember, last time it failed into the pressure treated wood, so let's see if it can do it into regular everyday lumber. 3, 2, 1, and go! Ooh, looks close. As you can see, it did it. Kind of a struggle, so I'm going to say the 1-inch speed bit, even its regular lumber, is probably right at its crispy limits. And so, okay, let's go ahead and we'll try it again with the HART. Alright guys, same exact bit, same piece of wood. Again, 1-inch speed bit into a regular piece of lumber with the HART drill. Shouldn't be a problem for it because it's able to do the pressure treated wood, and this is just regular lumber. Here we go. 3, 2, 1, beep! Yep, no problem at all. Went right through. Alright guys, so you can see the difference a little bit now between the hypertough and the HART. You can see that the HART does have more torque to it, and unfortunately on the website it doesn't list the torque ratings, but I can just tell you it's more than the hypertough. Alright guys, let's do some more testing.
Alright guys, as the tests get harder and harder, you're able to see more and more that the HART definitely has more torque than the hypertough does. You can see that separation more and more with each test. Alright guys, in the next test, I'm going to make that difference in torque visible by using lag bolts. But before I do that, I have a very quick request. Hit the subscribe key. The reason why people like me keep saying, please hit the subscribe key, is YouTube won't share any of their ad revenue with us until we get 1,000 subscribers. And I'm nowhere near 1,000 subscribers. And without that revenue, I'm going to end up living in a van down by the river. Alright guys, let's do some testing with lag bolts so you can see the difference visually between the torque between the two drills.
All right, guys, time for more testing. We're going to start off with the lag bolt. This is a pretty skinny lag bolt. I'm going to try pushing it through all this pressure-treated wood. From here to here is all pressure-treated wood. We'll see if each drill can push this lag bolt through the pressure-treated wood. As a reminder, pressure-treated wood is harder to go through than regular wood. I'm going to start off with the hypertough. The hypertough can do it, and then I'll go with a thicker lag bolt and try again. Let's see how it goes. Alright guys, that's as far as the hypertough was able to get it. Let's try the same exact thing, except this time with the HART, and see if it can do any better. Alright guys, the same exact test with the lag bolt going into pressure treated wood. We'll see if the HART's able to do it. Here we go. In 3, 2, 1, and go. And as you can see, the HART brought it almost flush, but not quite. So the HART definitely does have more torque than the hypertough does. Alright guys, I think that's a pretty good visual test.
Alright guys, thanks to the lag bolt test, you can visualize the differences. The 75% of the way in with the hypertough versus the 95% of the way in with the HART. By the way, those numbers, 75% and 95%, are just ballpark numbers. I didn't actually measure it, but you can see for yourself that HART definitely has more torque. Alright guys, we got one more thing coming up before the conclusion, and that is going to be the torque ring test, so we can test how much of a subtle differences you can get out of each of your torque settings. The only request I have before I do that is hit the subscribe key if you've gotten this far. I'd appreciate it. So this way here, YouTube might pay me, and as you know, so I don't have to live under a bridge. Alright guys, let's go do some torque ring testing now.
I've added a piece of tape to the chuck so you can see whether or not it's spinning. The reason why I'm doing that is I'm about to test the torque ring settings. If you're not familiar with torque ring settings, those are these numbers here on the top. You turn the outside of the chuck, and you can see you go to different settings. This little symbol here means drill mode. All the way down to here means super lightweight mode. So what does that actually mean? It means that if there's enough back pressure, the drill will stop spinning. So as you can see right now, you can see the chuck is spinning because you can see the orange piece of tape that I have here. But if I grab the chuck with it in number 1, again, stress, I'm doing this in it. Torque setting number 1, if I grab the chuck, you can see I'm keeping it from spinning. So why would you ever want to use the torque ring? Well, there's really 2 reasons. One is not to over tighten something or drive a screw too far into a wall or into a piece of wood. Let's assume you go into drywall. You know, drywall is pretty easy to over screw into. So what you can do is set it for, like, say, torque number 1, 2, or 3, or whatever the number is, until the screw isn't just far enough where it's flush, but doesn't get countersucked and rip up your drywall, whatever it is that you're screwing your screw into. Okay, the other thing you can also use it for, and this is less official, is to prevent kickback. Let's assume you, every now and then, your drill catches on something and rips out of your hand, and that's going to hurt. The real solution is get an impact driver. They don't do that. But, at least not as often. But the other solution is you can turn down the torque setting to some number that is good enough to put your screw in, but not so high that if it catches on something, it will rip the drill out of your hand. It will just start slipping. Alright, use that latter part at your own risk. Alright guys, I'm going to do some testing here, and we'll see how far this decking screw will go into these 3 pieces of 2x4 in each of the different torque settings. I'm going to start with number 1 and work my way up to 15. The HART drill has 23. Now don't panic, you're not going to have to watch me do this in real time.
Alright guys, I did spare you from having to watch me do the torque setting test for over and over again. So here we go. It's the hypertough, had about up to torque setting number 8 before it started countersinking significantly enough where I decided to stop. On the HART, it was torque setting number 19 where it started countersinking, and by torque setting number 20, it was really going down deep in there. Alright guys, all that's left now is the conclusion. But if you got this far, you know what I'm going to say. Please hit that subscribe button so YouTube might pay me so I don't have to live in a van down by the river. Alright guys, time for the conclusion. So, what's my conclusion? Well, it's that the HART is definitely more powerful. The HART just feels like a better tool overall. So, which one is right? Well, it's going to depend drastically on how it's going to be used, and also, equally important, whether or not it's important to you that the batteries may be compatible with other tools you're going to buy. And this is true for any brand, whether it's Walmart or at Home Depot or at Lowe's or wherever it is you're going to buy your tools. What I suggest is this. Ask yourself the first question. Is it important for you to have interchangeable batteries such that if you buy a drill, an impact driver, a circular saw, and you want the batteries to be compatible, then if that's the case for you, before you buy your first tool in a given line, ask yourself, how are the other tools in the same line priced? Are they of a quality that will be good enough for you? Are they priced where you're going to want to get them? In a previous video, I mentioned that when I first started working on decking, I went ahead and I bought a DeWalt drill and a DeWalt impact driver, and they're both fantastic. And then I went to buy a circular saw, and it was out of my price range. Just to be clear, it wasn't unreasonably priced. It's a really great circular saw, but I didn't need that for what I was doing. I was only building one deck and then doing some fencing. So a cheaper circular saw was fine for me. So I went and actually I got the hypertough one. If I was starting over, I would have gone all in for HART, because then all my tools would have been compatible and the price range would have been correct. So you have to ask yourself a couple of questions. What tools are you going to buy in the future? Do you care if the batteries are interchangeable? And what is the price? Now, when you're also looking at price with hypertough, which by the way, I've been happy with the tools I bought from hypertough. With hypertough, typically every one of their tools comes with a battery. It means every time you buy one of their tools, you're paying for a battery. In the case of HART, you have the option on some of the tools, but not necessarily all of them. I don't work for them, so I'm not 100% sure. But every tool that I looked at is available without a battery. So let's say you have 3, 4, 5 tools already from HART, and let's say 2 years from now you go to buy a circular saw, but you already have a 4 amp hour battery from another tool you bought. You could probably buy that circular saw with no battery, and it would be cheaper than the HART tool with the battery, but odds are it may still be more expensive than the hypertough. So those are things you have to consider for yourself. All of the tools that I reviewed today have been brushed motors. If you're going to be using the heck out of a tool day in and day out for years, look up brushless motors, understand the difference between brushed and brushless, and then I would say if you can use a tool day in and day out and you can afford it and it's in your price range, I'd lean towards brushless, regardless of what brand you get. All right, guys, so I can just give you general guidance. I am the clueless dude for a reason. I am not an expert. I'm just a homeowner that went through the same things you're probably going through now, trying to figure out which tools are right for you. And the biggest mistake I made was I didn't make sure I picked a line where all the tools had interchangeable batteries and that those tools were going to be all within my price range and quality that I needed. HART is a step above hypertough, but it's below, let's say, DeWalt. And so if I was to start over again, I think I'd go all in for HART. I would have gone with their brushless impact driver, their brushless drill. I probably would have gone with their brushed circular saw because I don't use it nearly as much. And I'd also go with their brushed reciprocating saw and their brushed jigsaw because, again, I don't use saws all that much. I did use the heck out of the drills and the impact drivers because I was putting in hundreds and hundreds of screws in when I was doing decking, but only cut maybe about 60 or 70 boards. So, I would pick and choose where I'm spending my money, but regardless of whether it's brush or brushless, if it's from the HART 20 volt line, all the batteries are interchangeable. For lighter tasks, let's assume you need to do something very lightweight, like maybe just putting some screws up, like putting up picture frames and stuff like that, I absolutely love the hypertough 12 volt series. So it's a different battery than the 20 volt series, obviously it's 12 volt, but if you have really, really lightweight stuff, I'll put a information thingy above me right now so that you can see a link to a video I did where I reviewed the 12 volt tools, and I've been really happy with the quality of the hypertough 12 volt series. The 20 volt series, it's good for its price, but it's starting to get close to the price of the HART, and the HART is better. And at some point you have to stop and say, no, it's good enough. And for some people that'll be the hypertough because they are good tools. I beat them up a little bit, but the HART is better. So it's all up to you. I hope I gave you enough information to make your own decisions, and I need to stress again, I am not an expert. I'm just some guy that's been using the tools around the house to do house repairs and decking and fencing, and this is what I've learned so far, and I'm trying to share it with you. All right, guys, I hope it helped. If anyone hears anything I've said that's wrong, feel free to put it in the comments. I won't be offended as long as you do it politely, and then people will know, and I'll improve my videos in the future. All right, guys, I hope you're doing great, and thank you so much for your time and your help. And as always, so I don't have to live under a bridge, please hit the subscribe button so YouTube might pay me. All right, guys, have a great day, and thank you so much for your time.